Before we jump into the assignment, I'm going to take a little bit of a side quest here, and I'm going to show you all some command line UI tricks. So how to do some things with the user interface in the command line so that it's not so boring, because the command line is kind of boring, right? You just have all text. So in the command line, I'm limited. I can print characters, and when I run that, it'll, after Python chugs to start, there we go, it'll print just the characters. It's all black and white, it's all letters. I don't have graphics, I don't have exciting things. There is a way to print emoji at the command line. I'm going to say that for another day. Yeah, that's right. It's a cliffhanger. It keeps you coming back for class. Maybe I'll show you later. All right. So command line UI tricks. So there's something you need to know about the command line. And this is this is kind of like state-of-the-art, high-end command line user interface design. You might have seen this if you've been around for a while, or you play with command line, or you like Linux, or, if you're just old like me. I'm not pointing anybody out, but if you're of a certain age group, maybe this is what computers used to look like to you. I certainly feel nostalgic when I see it. So this is kind of like the best we can do, or pretty close to the best we can do when it comes to command line interfaces. But this is a whole lot better than just saying, enter your choice without any introduction or any instructions or anything like that. It gives the user a sense that, hey, I'm like using a real program here, right? So that's kind of what we want to do. We want to give the user some context. We want to tell them what they're about to do, what they can expect, what kind of interactions we want from them. So I kept it very simple, right? I could have told them letters, or I could have them type Fahrenheit to Celsius. But who knows how to spell Fahrenheit anyway? Really, honestly, that's, it's some, I think maybe German word. I don't know. Anyway, Fahrenheit, too many H's if you ask me. I don't want to have them type any of that. So I'm thinking about how can I simplify this so my users don't have to do crazy stuff, but they can choose what they want. So change from Fahrenheit to Celsius, just choose one. I probably should say type one, because I would be like, I don't see where I click the number one. Never underestimate your user's ability to get things wrong, okay? If you want to get a real view of that, find somebody who's like in the 75 to 100-year-old age range, sit them in front of your program and ask them to use it without any instruction. That will teach you. Or, try going the other direction, have a 4 or 5-year-old sit down, because they're even better. Not only will they probably figure it out just fine, but in the process, 4 or 5-year-olds are merciless when it comes to telling you all the things you did wrong, right? Like you go out looking a certain way and a 5-year-old sees you, they'll be like, why are you wearing that? You look stupid. So trust me, I've had a lot of 5-year-olds in my life, and I'm about to have a lot more. So, that is the way it is. So command line, let's talk about that. So when Python looks at the screen, when it prints something out, like hello world, Python sees your screen as a grid, where each row across ideally has 80 characters. Now, the reason that Python likes 80 characters goes way back to when a computer screen could only show you 80 characters across, right? It is a throwback, but remember, Python's very old. It's been around a long time. So we just have kind of stuck with that, because more modern Python programs don't really need more than that, or they're using graphical user interface anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But you always kind of want to think about Python as 80 characters wide. Now, even though a lowercase l and an uppercase W feel like they take up different amounts of space, they don't. Not in Python. Every character, including space, including a period, including an exclamation point, including M's and W's and all the wide characters that we think of, all take up one space each. So hello world, HELLO space WORLD exclamation point. There are no fonts here. Everything is what's called a monospace character, which means the characters in that font take up one space each. Nice thing about that is that we can use this to our advantage. We can use spaces to align things. We can use characters to draw interfaces like this, right? So I know that if I use these number signs, they'll take up the same amount of space as a hyphen or a period or whatever. So I can use these things to create maybe art. Now, again, if you're kind of if you lean a little bit toward the nerd side or the geek side, you've seen plenty of things like this online, right? Yeah. What's this called? It's called ASCII art, right? And that is where we create art. And I've never really been good at this, by the way, but there are programs online where you can upload a picture and it'll generate this for you, for cheaters. So this is, if you look close, made up of just different kinds of punctuation. Now, some of the different punctuation that you'll see there is a little bit obscure, maybe punctuation that you don't see, but they are in the available set of characters in what's called ASCII, ASCII, which is a typical, it's a common type of encoding for characters. All you need to know is we can make all kinds of things using just text. So you can be very creative. And I've had people get very creative in this class with what they produce. So if I want to produce something like this, where it says, welcome to Python, and it's got a box around it, all I have to do is figure out how to generate these lines of text, right? I've got 80 number signs across. And then I've got 2 number signs, 76 spaces, and 2 more number signs. All I have to do is think about those patterns, and then I can build just about anything I want. There are some tricks to make this easier. I don't have to do this, right? I don't have to say print 2 number signs, and I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't have to do that, where I'm counting 76 times I hit the space bar. What's that? It is not fun. But there are some tricks. And that allows us, we can use these string expressions to easily do things like this. I told you couldn't do math, but there's one exception. I can multiply a string. And what this gives me is 80 number signs in a line. So now I can do things like this, where I print Bill's calculator. But here's a new string method that I want to introduce to you, because this is really convenient. What this does is it prints 9 number signs, and then it prints a string that is 60 characters wide. And in the middle of that string, it will put this. But it will, no matter what this is, it could be Bartholomew's calculator, which has significantly more letters than Bill's, and it would still be 60 characters wide. It would just have less space around it. But it will figure out exactly how to center that. You don't even have to think about it. And there is an L just for left justify and an R just for right justify. They take the width in characters as a first argument. So let's just take this code and check it out. And I want to take a second here and look at this. It's giving me an error. And now I copied and pasted straight. I will tell you that this code is legal code, but there's a problem with it that's almost invisible. And this will only happen if you copy and paste from something like Microsoft Word or various other places. But what's underlined up there is the first quotation mark. And the problem is that it's called a smart quote. Now, a smart quote, if you look at it, looks like this. They're the fancy quotes. We don't use fancy quotes in programming. Those characters are not legal characters, so we cannot use them. So all I need to do to make this work properly is replace that, and PyCharm wants to be so helpful, it's going to try and replace everything with other quotes for me. But I just need to go through and replace these smart quotes, quote unquote, smart, with regular boring quotes. And now this works fine. But check this out. Watch. Now when I run this, now I will tell you that my font size, so that I can teach this class and you can actually read this text, is so big that it won't display all 80 characters across. But on your screen, it should work just fine. But what's happening here is, and let me shrink this down just so you can see it. Settings. Okay, so there's my 80 characters. That's probably a little on the small side, but at least you can get a feel for this. So it's got 9, and then it's got 60. From here to here is 60 characters, and right in the middle of it, it puts Bill's calculator, and then we've got 9 more characters. So if I want to print something else, print, let's do number signs times 80, print number sign times 80. So let's run that. And now I've got a little bit of a user interface kind of thing going on. But look, here's an interesting thing. I've got 9 plus 60 plus 9. I'm missing 2, right? That's only 78. Don't forget that when I have multiple arguments in a print statement, it's going to put those in for me. Now, if I wanted to, I can use plus signs to concatenate those strings, in which case I would want to do 10 on each, because those are all strings. I can add them together like that. Okay, so that works the same. Now we will return to our normal size stuff so that we can actually read what we're doing. There we go. Oh, that's big. All right, so there we go. So if I want to print something like this, where I've got space in between, I could go print. Let's do the same thing here, times 10 plus this, a space, times 60 plus a number sign times 10. Okay, now it's a little easier on your eyes if you put a little white space in here, and you can kind of see what's going on better. That's just my preference. You don't have to do that, but you can. So if I shoot that out, there we go. So it's got 10 plus 60 spaces plus 10. So that's just how I'm using the grid now to create this. So now if I want to make this really easy, or if I want to do some, give an instruction here, press space, let's see, space to continue. I don't have to worry about anything here except that it's less than 60 characters. So there, I've got that. And it centers it for me. Makes it look real nice. Now, if I wanted to, I could left justify this. Bill's calculator, put it on the left side. So it still has 60 spaces, but it's left justified. Or I can do right justified. I can put it on the right side. Now, the nice thing about right justified stuff is that I can do something like this. If I'm doing money, which we will do later, print. If you're doing columns of money like this, you can already see that adding these up visually or following them gets a little messy. But if you use right justification, then you can get the decimals to line up for like money or numbers that you would do. So when you're displaying a list of money, like you were doing a monthly budget or something like that, you would want to do this so that they line up really nice. It's everything you can do to make it easier on your users. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with these things and a little bit of creative energy and some playing around. Playing around is always a good idea. So those are just some tricks for printing out the UI that will be helpful.